You love them. You want the relationship to work, but lately it feels like you're walking on eggshells. Every decision is questioned. Every boundary is challenged, and you feel more like a prisoner than a partner. If that is you, you might be in a relationship with a control freak. And today we're talking about how you can break free. Welcome to the Campbell and Amanda podcast. My name is Campbell.
My name is Amanda.
Honey, this is a good one.
It is a good one, and it's a common one.
Yes, it is a common one. And most people don't realize either that they're a control freak or that they're in a relationship with one.
True. Yeah, I mean, we'll get into it. We'll talk about it. Okay.
Yes, we will. So, but first, to begin with, let us define what control really is.
Control is fear dressed up as authority. So I'm going to say that again and think about it. Control is fear dressed up as authority. So it's fear pretending to be in charge.
Fear pretending to be in charge. And the controlling partner doesn't always look abusive. And that is why this is kind of tricky, because they may be not verbally or physically abusive, but they are controlling. And that's why most of the time it takes a while for somebody to wake up to the fact that they're in a relationship with a control freak.
Right. I mean, the purpose of a marriage is not to be controlled. If anytime that you are not operating within the purpose of a relationship, abuse is inevitable.
Abuse is inevitable. And the thing is that control is emotional bondage, right? Control is emotional bondage, and most people don't realize that it is. So before we even jump into the meat, maybe let's jump into the meat of this, right? 6 signs you are being controlled in your relationship. You want to go with the first one?
You're afraid to make decisions without them. You second guess your own voice, and even small choices feel risky.
Right? Yeah. You second guess your own voice. Why do you think that is?
I think you might be somebody who's averse to conflict. You might be somebody who's not really been empowered to make your own decisions in life. I give this example as the oldest of 3 girls, and I had other siblings, but I would do things that would be controlling. I would fold their laundry, match their outfits, put them in the dresser, and they'd come out of the room wearing something that I didn't put together. And I said, wait a minute, I didn't do that. Fast forward a few years, I'm in college away from them, and they're paralyzed to make decisions without me, or I'm there and they feel like they have to wait for me to make those decisions. And so this happens as a part of grooming, as a part of nurturing in your own home. You could become somebody who takes more control, and somebody who actually acquiesces to the control.
To the control. And you're just then afraid to make your own decisions. And when you're afraid to make your own decisions, you question your own thoughts. You question your own choices. And somebody who's a control freak in that relationship will pick up on that, okay, and will take advantage of that. And even small choices will feel risky for you.
And early on, it might feel like a relief for you because maybe you're indecisive or you're not quite sure if this is the right choice. And so you'd rather have somebody make it for you. And so he or she did that and you felt a relief, but now it's controlling everything. Yeah.
That is super important. And then the second one?
They constantly monitor or correct you. So they check everything you say in public. They micromanage your schedule, finances, your friendships, and this one's a doozy. This one's a really big one because you become isolated. You become isolated,
and the thing is that you keep on giving them the benefit of the doubt. They mean well. And the more benefit of the doubt that you give your partner who's a control freak, the more control they have over you, and the more they become assertive in their control. Right. And for you who is in that relationship with such a person, you're constantly feeling like they're monitoring you. Every little decision you make, they're monitoring you. Right. And that can be a very disempowering place to be.
And paralyzing.
Paralyzing. Yes.
Yeah.
So when you see those things happening, and we're going to talk about how you break free from this. We just want to talk about the science first. When you see that happening, it is important that you deal with it. First of all, accept that it is the reality of your relationship, because sometimes, again, like I said, we give our partners the benefit of the doubt and do not confront those things that are rubbing us the wrong way. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to keep the peace. Often we do that. Yeah.
Often we do that. And then the third thing is this: they undermine your confidence.
You can't handle that, they might say, or you're overreacting again. And these aren't opinions. They're really tactics to keep you dependent on them.
Exactly. Again, it's a question of getting you to question your own decision making. Right?
And it's ultimately emotional and psychological manipulation.
It is. And the more somebody does that to you, the more confidence you lose. And you find yourself in a place where you can't make your own choices, and therefore you feel like you're not in control of your own life. We have seen people stay in relationships where they have a controlling partner and they feel they can't even do anything about it because their confidence has just been so shattered by it.
Yeah, I mean, in the fear to step out and to make your own choices and make your own decisions is crippling because you've let somebody do it for so long.
Exactly. And by the way, the giving away of control, your control, and the giving away of your confidence or the erosion of your confidence does not happen in one fell swoop. It happens gradually. It happens, and because you love this person, you give them so much latitude, so much grace that in the process you lose yourself. I liken it to, there's this analogy: if you want to kill a frog in boiling water, right?
Yeah.
You do not put it in boiling water immediately. You put it in cold water and place that pot on the fire, so that as the water warms up, the frog acclimatizes to the environment, and before they realize it, they're boiling from the inside out, and they're dead.
Yeah, and that's a powerful analogy, but it really is spot on. It's really true to life that is what is happening to you. You're crippled to the point of not alive. You're walking dead.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. You're walking dead. All right. Fourth sign.
So they isolate you from your support system. And I brought that word up before. They discourage outside friendships or family time and then act like you're choosing others over them.
Why do you have to choose them over me? And this is a hallmark of abusers, right? Because control freaks are not always physically abusive, but they can be psychological abusers. They can be emotional abusers. And the way they do that is to isolate you from your support systems. They discourage you from developing friendships outside of the relationship that you have with them so that they can maintain control by shutting out other voices of reason. Right?
Exactly. I mean, it happens in cults on a large scale, but within relationships, that's how you enter into a cult, I would imagine. That, somebody persuades you that this way of thinking is best for you and this way of living is best for you, and really silence you allow your own voice to be silenced.
And they might even go to the extent of creating physical distance between you and your support systems. Think about, again, how cults operate, right? That's why some of the most strongest cults prefer to stay in a community, isolated from the outside world, so that the leaders of that cult can control the messaging, they can control people's interactions and keep an eye on people to make sure that they are not listening to other voices of reason. Your relationship can be like that.
Absolutely. This is sad.
It is sad.
This is really sad.
It is really sad. But again, that's why we're here. We're trying to help people. I think one of our goals is to wake people up to some harsh realities of being in a relationship with other people. And unfortunately, the people that hurt us are not always intending to do that. They themselves are operating from a place of pain and hurt. Things that they have never dealt with, trauma that they may have ignored and buried. And as a result, they act in a certain way so that they themselves can feel safe and in control, but in the process hurting those that they love.
Yeah, I would venture to say that 90+% of people come from that persuasion, and then the rest they're sociopathic. There's some that are just narcissistic
definitely.
and sociopathic, and really it is their modus operandum, or however you say it. But 90+% of people really are coming from a place of grooming to this place. This is a model they had. This is their survival system, and many of them are not intentionally hurting their loved ones.
Yeah. All right. Number 5.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, you go.
They punish you emotionally. All right. They punish you emotionally. They withdraw affection, sulk, lash out when things don't go their way. All right. That emotional punishment is very real. Okay. And withholding affection, because you didn't do what I wanted you to do, therefore I am not going to show you affection. That is control.
Yeah, and kids do it all the time.
Yeah.
we just
had this. They do it all the time, but unfortunately, if they don't grow out of it, they carry it into adulthood. And for us as parents, for example, we have to help our son deal with his emotions and learn to express himself. Unfortunately, people grow up and never learn how to express themselves.
And I mean, I see this all the time working in the field that I work in. We do a lot of social emotional education, trying to help students be able to express themselves when they have limited language skills, and try to help them learn how to give them strategies to deal with their emotions. But there are so many typical people who are grown who act like they have the social emotional intelligence of a toddler, because they themselves have never learned to grow up emotionally.
Exactly. And it is so disheartening sometimes to see the partner who's being controlled to run after this controlling partner when they withhold their affection. It can be so ugly. It can look childish. It can look very, I don't even know the word to explain it, but it's just so sad to see an adult literally begging for another adult to love them. And I'm going to do things your way so that I don't have to feel this again. That is emotional punishment and manipulation. And if you're in a relationship with a person like that, come to terms with the fact that they are a control freak.
Those are the hallmarks of control.
Those are the hallmarks of control.
If you're chasing after, if you're fighting for their love and attention, and holding on to the hope that, you'll get a thread of it, that's a hallmark of being controlled.
Yes. And it leads to sign number 6, which is you feel like you're losing yourself. Go ahead.
You don't recognize who you've become. And you feel smaller, quieter, and spiritually disconnected. So you're a shell of a person.
You're a shell of a person.
You don't know what you love anymore because you've been bending over backwards to try to keep somebody else happy, because they've created certain boundaries and expectations for you that are outside of who you really are.
And if you don't get hold of some solutions to get out of this relationship, you can live in such a way that you lose hope and just feel like there's no way out, and this is my burden to carry, and this is how life is going to be and was meant to be for me. You lose yourself. You lose your sense of purpose. You lose your sense of meaning. You begin to exist for your partner, and that is no way to live. All right? So here's a clarity check for you. And this is super important. And I'll give you an example from our relationship, okay? Not every strong personality is controlling.
True.
Right? I have a very strong personality.
True.
Would you call me controlling, though?
No, you're decisive.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I mentioned. Some people who fall prey to manipulative relationships, controlling relationships, are people who have maybe peacemakers, maybe conflict averse, who maybe grew up in an environment where they didn't have a lot of choice and for one reason or another. And so it does feel comfortable for somebody to have, who has a strong directional a personality and a strong ability to move in a forward direction, to have vision and purpose and move toward that. But it can easily be somebody who is also controlling, but that doesn't have to mean they are.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for us in the beginning of our relationship, my personality, I don't know any other way to be but be myself. And I think that was a little bit intimidating for you. Mm-hmm. Would you say?
Yeah.
I don't know if you would use the word intimidating, but.
Yeah. I mean, initially when we were dating.
Yeah, exactly.
Remember I broke up with you.
Twice.
And
wait.
Twice.
People, twice. She broke up with me twice. Who would break up with me? Twice.
But
anyway.
The second time was because I just feared your confidence appeared to be arrogance to me. And you didn't, like you said, you didn't know any other way to be. We were just rough around the edges in terms of asserting yourself with confidence because you just were not short on that. And again, like you said, you didn't know any other way to be, but I was somebody who would have been, somebody who wouldn't be as assertive as you were. And so it was scary to me based on my life experience to potentially be in a relationship with somebody that could be overly assertive and become controlling.
Right. So how did you break free of that?
I think it was, I had to lean into the people around me who had a more objective sense to be able to give me more clarity around your personality, around my own fears and my own worries, so that I can name them and I could really reflect on them. Is this just me? Do I need to work through this? Is there something that is a red flag? So I had to lean into the people around me, my support system, because I wasn't isolated at that time. I had people that could help me reason and think clearly through my feelings.
Exactly. And I think for me, moving forward in our relationship, one of the things that helped, because sometimes strong personalities can come across as strong all round, right? But we are very emotional people. We feel deeply. And unfortunately, sometimes, and I'm speaking for myself, and I've seen it in so many people that I can safely generalize this, that strong personalities sometimes do not know how to express themselves emotionally. They don't know how to put words to emotion. And sometimes it is very difficult for strong personalities to empathize because they don't see how somebody can be struggling with something that comes so easy to them, right? And so if you don't get to a place of understanding, compromise, patience, and exercising of grace in a relationship like ours, we could have been doomed from the get-go. But it took humility on our parts to go like, okay, maybe I need to change some things in the way I express myself, or I need to be more clear and emotionally vulnerable for me to connect with my partner at a deeper level.
And patient.
Yeah.
Yeah, and patient, because very decisive people tend to
be impatient.
Like,
make a decision already. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's 2 types of ice cream. How can that be so hard? All right. But and the other thing too is this: not every disagreement is about domination.
Right.
You have to understand that. So you might be in a relationship where you feel like your partner is controlling, but you just have to ask yourself, am I reading too much into this disagreement and misconstruing it as domination, when in actuality it is just a disagreement? We just have 2 different points of view.
Yeah, and if you're in a position and you have 2 types of ice cream and it's difficult to make a decision, just get both.
Just get both. Yeah. Okay, keep it moving. But in all seriousness though, if you feel constantly anxious, you're feeling like you're losing your voice, you feel like you are disappearing and being erased, It's time that you name it. It is time that you call it what it is. So as we close, we want to leave you with 5 things that we think will help you break free in your relationship without breaking it.
Right. Number 1, reclaim your voice. So start small. Name what you feel. Use phrases like, that doesn't feel loving. I want to talk about this and not be shut down.
Exactly. One caution, though, with that, if you are in the heat of a disagreement, that might not be a good question to ask, because the situation is already volatile, right? I would say ask it away from the emotion of the moment. So you ask it away from that fight, and you say, hey, listen, I know we just had a fight, but I just wanted to touch on one thing. And then you go into that question. I want to talk about this, right? That way, you're both coming from a place of objectivity, and you're no longer in the fight, so to speak. You're looking for clarity.
Yeah, so you need some time and space between the fight and the time, the reflection, the period of reflection, the period of addressing the offense, I guess I should say.
Yes. And remember that the loudest voice is not always the strongest. So again, reasserting yourself or reclaiming your voice away from the fight may be very effective if you do it that way. Yeah. Okay. Secondly,
rebuild your boundaries, because boundaries aren't rebellion, they're responsibility. So if you can't say no, then your yes is even meaningless.
Exactly. So when you set boundaries, stick to them. Stand on those boundaries. Okay? That is part of regaining control. And it may be even in the middle of the fight, like your partner may insist on wanting to resolve the issue right there and then. But maybe the boundary that you need to draw is, listen, I'm not in the right headspace for me to deal with this right now. I can talk about it later. And you stick to that. You don't engage in the argument. That is a way of asserting a boundary and really saying to the person, you are not in control of me.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's the person is speaking to you or at you in a certain way, you do have the right to set a boundary and say, no, you're not going to talk to me in this way when you're ready to respect me. When we're both in the right headspace to have this conversation respectfully, then we can do that. Yeah.
Exactly. Then thirdly,
bring in trusted counsel. So you don't have to suffer in silence. A wise counselor, a pastor, can provide clarity and protection. And, if you look at the wisdom from the ages, from Proverbs 11:14, in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. So, I mean, that's something that's the words protection and safety are really important because we are talking about control that becomes abuse.
And that's why we advocate that you should have a few people around you that you can trust with the most difficult of situations that you may have as a couple in a relationship. Trusted advisors can help you wrestle back control and bring balance in your relationship. And then fourthly, pray for courage, not just comfort. And that is super important. A lot of people who suffer when they're in a relationship with a control freak a controlling person, is that they pray for things just to quiet down. They just want to get comfortable again without praying for the courage to confront the issue, right? Freedom often starts with courageous prayers, courageous asks, courageous actions, asserting those boundaries, right? God help me to walk in truth, even when it's hard.
Exactly. Right. Even if it starts with something like, well, I'm going to be honest, I don't really like this meal, or I don't really like the way we do this, so I would like to start doing it a different way. Instituting some small changes that are more agreeable to you. Exactly. So that you feel like you have a voice as well.
And the last one is super important. You want to go ahead?
So invite, don't instruct. If your spouse is controlling, direct confrontation will often escalate that. and it may become volatile. So instead, invite reflection. So that may look like you asking, do you feel like you need to control everything? Or what are you afraid would happen if you didn't fill in the blank? So that really shifts the dynamic from power to partnership.
Or do you realize that when you do this, it sounds controlling? Or when you do this and stop me from doing this, it makes me feel this way. And that is controlling. Because again, remember, this partner of yours may not realize that they actually have a controlling personality.
Yeah. And you could even say something like, when you do this, I don't know if you realize it, but it looks to the outside world like you are controlling or maybe even abusive. It comes across as negative anyways.
It comes across as negative. Again, these things, when done consistently and when done with grace and understanding, can help break that cycle of control in your life. Yeah. Do you have any final words for our friends today?
There's always hope. Hope that, number one, that you do, in fact, have the courage and the strength to stand up for yourself as somebody who may be feeling like they are being controlled. And you do have the ability to make your own choices. You do have the ability to envision a happier, more purposeful, more self-directed life, not dependent on somebody else controlling everything around you. You do have that within you. And the more that you make small changes not to avoid the conflict, but to address it, the more confident you will become and hopeful that you'll become that it can make a difference for you. You can grow and you can find your voice again and hopefully make change within your relationship.
Exactly. My final takeaway is simply this. Controlling love isn't real love, to be honest. You're not called to surrender your voice to preserve somebody else's comfort. And that is super important for you to remember. You were made for freedom. You were made for partnership. You were made for peace. So today, take that one step. Speak one truth. Reclaim one boundary, because staying in a relationship doesn't mean staying in emotional captivity. Don't be a captive. Set yourself free with these tips that we have given you. And as always, if you have any questions, please place them in the comments below. All right. And join us again next week for another show that I think will be helpful for you. But if you want to learn more about just thriving and growing in relationships, we invite you to watch this next video. God bless you.
Bye.
Bye.